YouTube, what's up? Northeast Ohio. Here for another video. This is been what I've been talking about for a while. Get requested a lot. It is, and I narrowed it down a little bit. There's going to be some honorable mentions that we may talk about briefly, but this is five guys that I am looking to at least, if not sell all of, at least move some position on prior to the season starting. Or right as the season starts. In some cases, I think I want to just try to be ahead of the game, and sell right before the season starts, or sell before the season starts. So, YouTube nonsense down below. Like, comment, sub. Let's get into this. And this is just guys that I'm considering. I don't know everyone's situation. I don't know what you guys paid for a card, when you bought it, et cetera, et cetera. So everyone's situation is going to be a little bit different. But these are just guys that I think their prices have got to the point that it may be hard for them to live up to the expectations that their prices are currently at. So, as we saw in the football market in the lead up to the season starting, prices were at an all time high on a ton of players. Then the season started, guys started playing, and their prices went down. We saw the same thing in the NBA bubble. The guys that played well, their prices went up. Guys that didn't, Zion, their prices tanked. And the same thing's going to happen. When we roll around to December 22nd and the season starts, it's not going to be all green arrows anymore. Someone's going to get hurt. Someone's going to test positive for COVID. Someone's just not going to live up to expectations. A team that was supposed to be good isn't. All this stuff is going to start happening that happens during a normal NBA season that we forget about during an off season, and we get excited because it's the hype for the season. Well, then reality sets in. And as we saw during the bubble, as these guys got eliminated or played poorly, like Zion, even Luka, when Luka got eliminated, their prices fell hard and fast. And I pulled some graphs up here specifically for the players I'm talking about, but basically everyone's went down. Now, part of that was the market was overinflated to begin with, and there was a little bit of a pullback. But the second these guys got eliminated, and then as it went on, people started to learn, and they started selling further ahead because they knew what was going to happen. Like Lillard, he was playing amazing, and as soon as the Lakers series, like that, it was clear that they don't even have a chance, his prices started going down, and they were only down like 2 games in that series. And it was basically like they're done, and the sell-off had begun. That's the thing. People talk about the high pop counts all the time, et cetera, et cetera. And if, the player's playing well, the high pop count doesn't matter. People are looking to buy. However, the second something goes wrong and the sell-off begins, especially on these high pop count cards, people want to move off the positions that they have on them and lock in whatever profit that they made off of it, depending on when they bought it, or get out before it gets too low because they don't want to get stuck holding it all the way to next season. So what happens? Everybody starts undercutting each other, and the prices fall fast. And on guys like Zion, where there's 14, 15,000 PSA 10 prisms or whatever it is, when you start undercutting each other, those prices go down quick. So, with that little preamble, I pulled up 5 players here. I'm showing base PSA 10 Prism prices, but you could basically trickle this down to whatever. So, if you had PSA 10 Optics or Raw or Select, whatever, because though the individual prices may not follow these graphs specifically, the general pattern is the same. So, when they were at their peaks, all their cards were at their peaks. When they were at their dips, all their cards were at their dips for the most part. There's be a little variance in that, but to not make these charts have a bunch of different data on them, to just keep them clean. As per usual, we are sticking with base Prism PSA 10. It's the most common card out there. So for the purpose of this is what we're going to use. So first up to bat, is going to be DeAndre Ayton. Um, Here's the thing with Ayton. He got super buzzy because of the Chris Paul acquisition with the rest of the Suns. His stuff shot up. Bigs just typically don't carry a ton of value and have basically a capped ceiling. So Embiid, for example, his PSA 10 Prism, which is a much lower pop count card, only goes for about $300. Ayton's sitting just under $200 right now, or right about $200 on his PSA 10 Prism. So could he absolutely ball out and just put up monster stat lines and his card prices go crazy? Absolutely. More often than not, I think he is your average to slightly above average big. And to be frank with you, those guys just don't sell well. Yes, I know the Suns are trendy, and I know this one could blow up on our face. But depending on when you bought, like if you had Ayton pre-bubble, so I ran all these charts back to March 1st, just to kind of give us a larger time frame here. So you could see the beginning of this chart all the way back on March 1st, his PSA 10s were going for $50. Oh, what quaint times. And it basically stayed at around $50 for most of the summer. Then the bubble game started and they got a little trendy. The market started picking up and then it shot up because they went on that monster run. And it jumped up to 150 and it peaked all the way up to, look at that, close to $200. Then the market, I don't want to say cratered, but it dipped back down again and got to its low point around late October. And you can see this dropped all the way down to around 120 to $130, or some of the lows on this card, 125s. Now it's back up to 200. You know, if you bought in here at around 125 and you could flip now for 200, you know, depending on where you sell, if you got to eat some eBay fees or whatever, you know, you can make a nice 50 to $75 a card on that. If you bought back here, you could make a ton. And I'm going to go with, I made the whole video about my philosophy on selling. And most of these guys, this is how I would approach this if you can, in my personal opinion. And that's sell off a few and lock in your gains and then free roll whatever you got left over. So, and these guys are in no particular order. Ayton, for me personally, I have a handful of base prisms. I do not have anything graded for Ayton. I picked up a small lot of base prisms. I forget what I paid for them. What did I buy those for? I got them for, no one cares. I got them for like $5 to $8 a piece. Actually, about $8 a piece. So I forget what raw are going for, but I'm probably going to sell off most of them. I don't think any of them are PSA tenable. I think they're mostly 9s. So I think I'm just going to sell them raw here in the next probably the next week or so. And the reason why I'm saying you should probably sell now is because I think there's a lot of people. I see this a lot. Oh, no. Sell that right before the season starts. Sell that right as the season starts. I see that advice a lot. And yes, you know what? You might max out a little bit more value. But I think there's going to be a lot of people trying to sell certain players right when the season starts. And we're assuming there's going to be enough buyers to maintain the prices. Maybe we see a dip right as the season starts as people look to unload some stuff that they don't want to carry the risk into the season. I personally would rather be a little ahead of that than wait 2 more. It's 2 weeks. You know, sure, something crazy could happen that shifts the market on a particular team. James Harden trade, whatever. It's the NBA. Wild stuff happens all the time. But in general, I tend to be risk averse as much as possible. And I'm going to try to avoid those situations if I can. So if I'm holding Ayton, any of these guys, I'm looking to start moving now. And just because you want to sell a card doesn't mean you can sell a card. You could post it on eBay tonight for a fair price, and it may take you 3 or 4 days to sell it, unless you run it at auction. Then you run the risk of whatever happens at the auction happens at the auction. So, Ayton is the first one on the list, once again, in no particular order. Next up, lost my mouse cursor. Tyler Herro. Oh, Mr. Herro. So, my thought process here is, I mean, there's a legitimate shot. The best basketball he ever played in his entire life has already happened. His bubble games were absolutely amazing. And there's a shot that's the best he's ever going to be. Does Tyler Herro ever make an all-star game? I don't know. I don't think it's a lock. I think he's a good player. I don't know if he ever makes an all-star game. So, with where his prices are at right now, once again, he peaked in the bubble. His PSA 10 got all the way up to $450. It's currently sitting at around 300, little under 300. Once again, depending on where you bought in at, if you bought in on the low here on the dip for the low 200s, this got down to 215, 220, 205 in that late October area, 230, 220. And you could pull around 300. They were actually over 300 for a little bit of a minute there. It looks like they've dipped back down the last couple days. And once again, make 50, $60 a card and move on to the next thing. I don't know if that's the worst idea, especially if you bought way back here in the spring/early summer when these were $100 a card, and now you could get 300 a card. Perfect example. If I bought 3 Tyler Herro Prisms back in the spring, I'd sell one now and pay for all 3. Then you could free roll the 2 going forward. I like Tyler Herro. I think he's a fun player. He was great in the bubble, but I don't think he's the next Giannis or Tatum or even Ja Morant or Luka. I think he's a good third player on a team. I don't know that he's ever the star of a team. Maybe I could very well be wrong. And we may look back in this video in 6 months and be like, what the hell was that idiot saying? But I think his price on his cards are at a point where I would lock in some profit on him if it was me. Keep in mind, guys, think back to like the all NBA team 10 years ago. How many of those players' cards still have a lot of value? Go pull up, just Google all NBA teams and go back 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years. And look who was like just on the first teams. And look at what their PSA 10s go for certain guys. Don't get me wrong. There's going to be guys on that list that still hold a lot of value. You're going to have your Kobe's. You're going to have your Shaqs. You're going to have your LeBron on a ton of them. But there'll be a lot of names that are going to show up on that list. And you're going to be like, holy cow, that guy was first team all NBA and his card is worth like next to nothing. That's why I always say don't be afraid to lock profit in on these guys when you can. So if I bought PSA 10 Prisms Heroes back in the spring or summer, basically anything before this pre-bump up, and even here it was like 175, and then back here it was around 100, I would 100% be moving some of them. And I'm not saying, hey, fire sell everything that you own, but the season's about to start and things are going to change that we don't foresee coming. So protect yourself. That's basically what I'm saying with this list. These are guys that I want to protect myself on, and I don't want to be left holding the bag. The next one, and this hurts because I love this player, but I don't know that he can sustain these prices once the season starts. That's Shy, SGA. Love SGA. I adore SGA. I've been talking about him all off season. His base Prism PSA 10 is up to almost $400. $375 to $395, depending on the day. It's been jumping around a little bit. Back in the spring and summer, this was a sub $100 card. At its peak, back in the bubble, When they were in the playoffs, it was a $400 card. For a hot minute, it was 400. It mostly sat in the upper threes. We're back to that point again, basically. Last average sale was 370. During the dip, if you bought in this flat period here, you got it for low 200s, 225, 230. If I bought for 225 and 230 and I could sell now for almost 400, even with some eBay fees or whatever, I'll lock in that $100 a card profit. Or heaven forbid, I bought back here. SGA for myself personally, I have a handful of base raw. I have a Prism red, white, and blue raw. I have a Prism PSA 10 red, white, and blue. And then I have a base sitting at PSA. My plan is, this is personally what I'm doing. I am keeping the red, white, and blue PSA 10. I am keeping whatever the mystery card is that's sitting at PSA base, whether it's a 9 or a 10. And I'm going to sell my raws here probably in the next couple of days. I'll probably post them this weekend. I think I have 3 or 4 raw prisms and a raw red, white, and blue that I bought for next to nothing because I bought them back in February. They were like $8 a card. I could sell all that stuff and probably make money. I'll be up even if the PSA 10 red, white, and blue and the mystery card at PSA, if he shredded both his ACLs, I would still be up on SGA. And now I am banking 2 PSA cards to roll into the season. But I protected myself if he goes belly up. That team's not going to be good. They're not going to make the playoffs. I do think he's going to pick up big numbers. I love him for fantasy. This one could blow up in my face, but I am definitely selling off at least a little bit of my SGA shares because don't forget, he played like he played like crap in the playoffs. He did not look good. Now, that was the playoffs. Added pressure, all that. Maybe he didn't like the bubble, whatever. We'll see what happens this year. There's no guarantee that he comes out and is all NBA, all world, first team, all-star, whatever. Good chance he's the best player on that team. But for where his prices are at now, at almost $400 for a PSA 10 Prism, you're damn straight I'm going to sell off some of my shares. I'm not going to sell all of it. I'm going to put my best stuff to the side and sell my other stuff and protect myself on SGA. And then I'll roll that stuff into the future and see what happens. But at least if he goes belly up, I'm not out anything. That's the way that I like to do this flipping business, is protect myself as much as possible. Because remember, unless it's LeBron or Giannis or Luka, someone at some point, whether it's tomorrow or 3 years from now, is going to get left holding the bag because most of these players are not going to be worth the prices that they're worth today. That's just a fact. Next, RJ Barrett. I am not a big RJ Barrett fan. I understand a lot of people are. Myself personally, I don't think he played well at all last year. I know that the Knicks kind of nicked him, and maybe he's a little cursed because of that. But if he comes out and looks bad at the beginning of the season, like if he plays at all like he did last year, his prices are going to tank. Now, this is another one. He could come out and play great. His prices would go to the moon because of the Knicks. Are you willing to roll the dice on that? That's up to you. I don't know what your personal investment is into RJ Barrett. I personally have not put a ton of money into him. I have probably 10 base prisms of his raw. 2 of those are at PSA right now. My plan is to probably sell at least half those other 8 raw before the season starts. I also have a pile because I ripped a ton of Optic and Mosaic. I have a ton of Optic variations, Optic base, and Mosaic base. I am probably going to sell all of that. In fact, I've already sold some. Had a sale today on some RJ Barrett. I plan to move off all that stuff and just hold whatever the 2 at PSA grade out at and hold on a couple to the base raw prisms. I'm just not a believer in RJ Barrett. I think he's going to be a fine player, but I think he's a role player to like just your average starting NBA player at best. I could be wrong. We'll see. We'll see. This will probably be a hot take video with a lot of crazy comments. Because people get mad when you talk about. I talk about buying players. Everyone loves everything. Talk about selling players. People get mad, man. It's all cool. It's all good. It's all good. All right, Zion. Let's do it. I've really haven't been shy about this before. I am not a huge believer in Zion, but I'm also not an idiot, and I want to protect myself. So most of my higher end Zion, I have already sold off, and I've said this comment before. I've made enough Zion profits to essentially pay for the rest of my Zion. So I recently took inventory of everything Zion that I have. I split it into two piles. I pulled most of my Zion stuff is graded at this point. I pulled some out that I want to sell before the season started, and it's mostly like random stuff, like mosaic Zion debuts, like greens and pink camos and PSA 10s. They're like $150 to $200 card. I have a Zion base Donruss that I bought raw and graded that's going for like 150, 175, whatever, nothing crazy. I have a few prisms and SGC slabs. I have some optics and SGC slabs, et cetera, and some other random stuff. I am going to hold some of that stuff into the season. And to be honest, I think it's a risk, but it's a risk I'm worth taking because of where I have positioned myself on Zion already. Where I am at personally on Zion is if he busts tomorrow, like goes full Anthony Bennett, then I'm fine. Yeah, opportunity cost lost to not selling the stuff, but I'm not going to be like devastated by it. If he goes ballistic, I would look to continue to sell his stuff as his prices go up. I just do not believe in him long term to stay healthy. I could be completely wrong and look like an idiot. But that's just where I am. I'll set one or two things to the side and ride it into the ground just to protect myself. But I think I will continue to pare down my Zion inventory depending on what prices do once the season starts. Now, if you're all in on Zion and you think he's the greatest thing in the world, you do you. If it was me personally, and once again, I do not know everyone's financial situation, where you got into these cards for, what you paid for them, et cetera, especially with Zion. His prices have been all over the board, depending on where you bought in. Myself personally, my take on Zion is I'm looking to protect myself as much as possible. So, if I could turn a good profit on the Zion that I had, I would at least sell off some of it to cover my ass. And then if he goes nuts in season, well, sorry about your luck. You lost out on some profits on those, but you still have a stash that you're good for. If he comes out and looks like he did in the NBA bubble, his prices will tank, and they will tank fast. People love to hate Zion. So that's where I am with him. Once again, my general mantra always is protect yourself as much as possible. Someone is going to get left holding the bag at some point. Sports card flipping / investing / whatever, other than a couple players, is basically a game of hot potato with your checking account. That's the best way I can describe it. So protect yourself as much as possible. Now we're going to do a bonus one on here. I'm not counting him as the 5 because I don't know how I feel about this one, but I could logic it out very easily. And this is one of the guys that is in my list of guys to hold long term. However, that's good old Trey Young. Trey Young is at an all-time high in prices, basically. His PSA 10 Prism, it was up to $700. That was the all-time high. It has dipped down recently to around $660, but it is still way the hell up there. I certainly would not advocate selling all my Trey Young. However, if you bought Trey Young anywhere back in here, PSA 10 Prisms for between $200 and say even $300, $280, basically this whole lead up, pre-pandemic, post-pandemic. He was $200. He dipped down post pandemic to around 175. He got up to around 280 to 300, and then he went psycho in the bubble when the whole market exploded. Then he dips back down again. Even if you bought in here post NBA finals or at post dip, basically at around $400, and now it's up to 650, 700. If I was sitting on a pile of these or whatever Trey Young stash you're sitting on, I don't think it's a bad idea this weekend to sit there, take inventory on it, slide the stuff to the side that you really like, and maybe look to sell off maybe one or two pieces just to CYA. I don't think this is the all-time high point for Trey's base PSA 10 Prism. I truly don't. But is there a chance that it is? Sure, there's a chance. Absolutely. That $700 is the highest that his so we will see what happens. We will see what happens. So I don't feel great about this one. That's why he's not one of the official 5. But if I had a bunch of Trey Young, I would 100% look at least moving a couple of them. Just to CYA. Just a little bit. Maybe you hold on to all your prisms, but maybe you got some optics you can make a nice profit on. Whatever. So that's all I got for you guys today. I'm sure there'll be some happy people, some mad people, whatever. Once again, you don't have to listen to me. This is just what I'm doing. And I kind of like to explain my approach because I get this question a lot. Which guys am I looking to sell before the season? Should I sell this guy? Should I sell that guy? The true answer is it really depends. Everyone's situation is different. Everyone got into cards at a different price point. Everyone has different financial situations, different goals. That's why I always say before you buy a card, you should have a plan for why you're buying it. And those plans will change, but at least have a general loose idea. But that's all I got for you guys today. We will see you Sunday morning for the weekend review. Peace.